we're still on the speaking thing. How do you handle nerves or stage fright before speaking to large audience? I guess, like, I have found the thing that gives me the most confidence is the realization that pretty much you could fall down on stage and no one would remember because you're just not that important in their lives.
So the very first time I was invited to Comic-Con to speak, they gave me one class. It was a room of about 650 people. And by the time I got there, it was standing room only. There was already people lined up against the back wall. Matter of fact, because I was nervous because I was, it was my first time speaking there. And so I walked into the room, I looked out and, saw my name on the door thingy. And I walked into the room, looked around the room and saw that it was packed. And I literally turned around and walked out. Not because I was nervous or whatever. It was like, obviously I'm in the wrong room. Like, it's literally, it was just, this is obviously, and I went out and I looked and my name was on it and there was a doorman there. And I was like, who's speaking in here? And he was like, Maxwell Alexander Drake. I was like, oh, okay. And so I walked in and I did make a joke about it because I was like, so you guys are all here to see Maxwell Alexander Drake talk. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, Bruce Campbell is in the next room. Like I would rather be over there. And they didn't know who I was, or at least a lot of them. So when I then turned, because this was 17 years ago, this is the first year I spoke at Comic-Con. So instead of using the stairs to get up on the stage, I jumped at the front of the stage to jump up there, and my foot caught on the stage and I just face planted. And I went, and for my next trick. So I literally did fall the very first time I was speaking. Releasing your inner dragon.
So where have you been that we didn't record for like 3 weeks straight?
So for my entire career so far, there was Comic-Con and then a week off and then Gen Con. And Comic-Con being the largest fan convention in the United States is exhausting, and having a week off is nice. And Gen Con being the largest fantasy convention in the United States is exhausting. Well, because of football, Gen Con had to slide a week sooner. And so now for the rest of my existence, I will be doing San Diego Comic-Con, driving home on Monday to have about a 10-hour turnaround time to get on a plane to fly to Indianapolis for Gen Con. So that was my life this last month, was 2 major conventions back to back.
So we thought that since Drake has just returned from a convention, that we would have a conversation about what it takes to be a professional author at a convention, how you get into it, what you do there, what your kind of interaction is like, and all of those kinds of questions.
What I wish I knew 20 years ago.
Yeah. We sourced a whole bunch of questions from the writer's room and kind of, people who are interested in this topic. And we're going to go through those and Drake's going to answer them.
Oh, you've been, you went with me last year to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
The advantage you had is that was probably my 15th Comic-Con. Yeah. So I had already kind of worked out the nuts and bolts and already taken all the crappy licks to, wow, don't do that ever again. So got a little bit of a advantage. What do they say? My favorite statement is they say a smart man learns from his own mistakes and a wise man learns from other mistakes, which is why I'm a very, very smart man. So, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So how do you prepare for, let's just dive straight into it. The first question is, how do you prepare for a speaking engagement at a convention or festival? Is there a routine you follow beforehand?
So there is. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to get together. And when I first started doing it, these are things that I had to learn through trial and error. There's things that you just don't even realize that you would need. Like, tape or scissors or clips, or like there's just all sorts of things that as you're doing these conventions, you're at them and you're like, man, I wish I had X right now because this thing came up. And if I had this tool or this thing, my life would be so much easier because I wasn't expecting whatever. So over these last 20 years, as things have happened, I've been collecting what I call my convention kit. So I literally have a to-do list on my phone, a little app, and I check it off every convention, and then I just uncheck it all so that it is back, not done. And it's everything. It's broken down into a couple parts. One is stock. Stock is things that I'm going to sell, so that's my books, my merchandising, whatever. And so I have those all listed. I've already decided what I'm taking, and I've got a list of it and the amounts that I want to take depending on the convention. I have my booth set up. So
I think we're getting a little bit off the topic of the question, which is how do you prepare for a speaking engagement?
well, it's still the same thing. It's how do I prepare? Because I'm gonna speak at a place that I have a booth. I'm not gonna speak if I don't have a booth, and I don't like doing booths if I'm not speaking. So because that's what I was going to. The next thing is my classes. So I have a checklist for that, my laptop, my, any handouts that I'm doing, what class I'm giving. So I have these little checklists for all these different things that I'm doing to make sure that I am going to be taking everything. But then you have other things like a lot of them need parking passes. You need your hotel room information. You need your badge pickup information. So there's all these things. So that's another checklist that I have, which is the convention checklist. So I just have, that's what I do. I have checklists, and depending on what I'm doing, I either use all the checklists or some of the checklists or whatever. I mean, obviously there are some things where I don't have a booth, where I'm just speaking or whatever. So I'll use different checklists, but that is how I prepare. Because I've been doing it for so long, I have these checklists that I broke everything down into individual components so that if I'm doing all of them, I can just pull out all the checklists and go down through them. If I'm doing one or two of them, and it just depends on what I'm doing.
The second question is, what are the key differences between speaking at smaller, more intimate events versus large conventions like Comic-Con?
A lot of time, a lot of preparation that you don't have to do. For the bigger ones, I'm usually doing something specific for them. So for Comic-Con and Gen Con, I'm doing specific Comic-Con giveaways, specific Gen Con giveaways, contests for them, whatever, because it's a bigger thing and I'm going to make more money. So therefore I can spend a little bit more money. I'm doing, a small little writers thing. Well, I was invited like 4 days before Comic-Con this year, I got an email from somebody that says, I'm really embarrassed to say this, but I didn't know you lived in Vegas, and I run a small little convention in Vegas, and it's going on this weekend. We're already set up, but man, I give you a free ticket if you want to come down. There's only 28 of us, so we're just in this one room. We're just talking, but we'd love to, I'll set aside an hour and you can just talk about yourself and all of that. And I'm like, great, because I leave Monday heading to San Diego for Comic-Con. But I'm like, sure, I'll come down one day. So, I took a small little bag with a handful of books. I think I maybe took 25 books down there of 2 or 3 different types, not 25 of each, but like 25 total. And then I just went down there literally with a bag, and that was it. Business cards to pass out, but nothing else. I wasn't doing a class. I was just going to freeform talk like this. So ask me whatever, I'll say whatever.
So I think that is important to note, that you should take business cards at the very least with you, because you want to be able to give people something that they can get in touch, look you up, etc., etc.
Yeah. Because even, you would think that, because I've done that before, where I'll meet somebody and it's like, look, it's really easy. Maxwell, Alexander, Drake. Google that, you will find me. And then I'll bump into that person a year later and they're like, yeah, I remember meeting you. I was going to look you up, but I couldn't remember your name. And I'm like, Maxwell, Alexander, Drake. Like, you would think that that's a pretty unique name to remember. It's the only one on the, but yeah. But even like the funniest thing is the guy that introduces me at Comic-Con every year. This is my 17th year speaking at Comic-Con, and I love him to death. But up until probably 4 years ago, he still introduced me. He'd get up there and he's like, as a staple, he's here every year. We love him to death. He's one of our most requested speakers, Maxwell Anthony Drake. For like
What would be
12
amazing is
years.
what would be really amazing is if every year he had a different A name
Yeah.
and it was never Alexander.
Right.
Maxwell Anthony Drake, Maxwell
Antonio.
Aardvark Drake, Maxwell Aaron Drake.
Yeah. But every time, the funny thing is one of his jobs is for every speaker, they print out the little tabletop things. So every year, the first thing he does is, here's your tabletop thing, and it's got Maxwell Alexander Drake on it. And up until about 3 or 4 years ago, he literally called me Anthony Drake every year.
You should literally just have used a different A name every year. That would have been funny.
That would have been nice. But yeah, so it's weird that, you would think that would be something that you would get.
All right, next question. We're still on the speaking thing. How do you handle nerves or stage fright before speaking to large audiences?
I'm a terrible person to ask this. I mean, what about you? Because I'm an extrovert. So when I'm on stage,
I'm a really bad person to ask this because I was a little shy and a little retiring as a child. And my mother was like, well, you need to learn how to, speak to people. So you're going to do drama now. So I did 12 years of drama. I did 12 years of drama learning how to, overcome my stage fright as a child. I guess, like, I have found the thing that gives me the most confidence is the realization that pretty much you could fall down on stage and no one would remember because you're just not that important in their lives.
So the very first time I was invited to ComicCon to speak, they gave me one class. It was a room of about 650 people. And by the time I got there, it was standing room only. There was already people lined up against the back wall. Matter of fact, because I was nervous because I was, it was my first time speaking there. And so I walked into the room, I looked out and, saw my name on the door thingy. And I walked into the room, looked around the room and saw that it was packed. And I literally turned around and walked out. Not because I was nervous or whatever. It was like, obviously I'm in the wrong room. Like it's literally, it was just, this is obviously, and I went out and I looked and my name was on it and there was a doorman there. And I was like, who's speaking in here? And he was like, Maxwell Alexander Drake. I was like, oh, okay. And so I walked in and I did make a joke about it because I was like, so you guys are all here to see Maxwell Alexander Drake talk? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, Bruce Campbell is in the next room. Like I would rather be over there. And they didn't know who I was, or at least a lot of them. So when I then turned, because this was 17 years ago, this is the first year I spoke at Comic-Con. So instead of using the stairs to get up on the stage, I jumped at the front of the stage to jump up there, and my foot caught on the stage, and I just face planted. And I went, and for my next trick, so I literally did fall the very first time I was speaking.
So in a way, it's a little bit like internet comments, right? So on my YouTube channel, for example, I have learned not to engage with comments that argue with some point I'm making in the video. Like somebody disagrees with a point in my video and they post a long screed about why they disagree. The thing is, I don't delete the comment because I appreciate the engagement on the video. Negative engagement, positive engagement, the algorithm doesn't care. So I'm glad for the comment. But I've learned not to engage with it, not to argue with a point, neither to acknowledge it nor to argue with it. And the reason is there are like thousands of people who watch my videos and one of me. Out of those thousands of people, around 10% are going to find a reason to, angrily post about the video for whatever reason. Maybe I stepped on their Lord of the Rings lore or whatever. Like, and if I engage with them, there's like 10 of them shouting things at me. There's too many.
Yeah.
Right. But for them, there's just one of me.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a lot like that. Like I see those comments all the time. For them, they're just noise.
Yeah.
It's the same when you're talking on a stage. Yeah, for that moment, it feels like everybody's watching you. But honestly, they're going to walk out that room, and if you didn't do well, you didn't do well.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to remember you for the rest of their lives and snicker about it. You are not that important to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one way to think about it. I just try to do the best that I can. I know that what I do is subjective. I know that you can't bat 1,000. And so it's the reason why I don't read my reviews either, because you can't please everybody. So why do I care when, if it is still that, I look at my scores. If I'm running a 4.7, 4.8, 4.9 out of 5 stars, then that means the vast majority of the people out there are appreciating what I'm putting out. I can't hit better than that. So why would I want to wallow in the couple that don't appreciate what I do? Now, it is weird to me when I have people so like I've got one anti-fan who literally comes to everything I do. Every public appearance that I do, he's there. And after every one, he comes up to me to tell me how much of a piece of garbage I am. How everything I said was stupid and wrong. And then he's like, do you want to, because I usually will go out to dinner afterwards with whoever. And he always join, and like that's the type of person that I don't understand. I don't understand why you keep coming if I'm not the person for you. Like, if you watch me once and you're like, I don't like anything you had to say, and then that's it, I never see you again for the rest of my life, great, because I wasn't for you. But this guy follows me everywhere.
Actually, you should be able to understand it. It's like hate watching. It's like people who hate watch shows that they don't like so that they can bitch about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I actually think that it's jealousy and he feels insecure, so he has to lash out. That's what I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I don't believe he actually believes what he says. I think he's just lashing, because otherwise I just don't see him like coming to a public event of mine, driving out of his way, taking 2 hours of his time to come to something that I'm speaking at or whatever, paying to get in. I just don't see him doing that. I think he does get stuff out of it. It's just that he feels, some people just feel insecure, or some people live life with a zero-sum game. I can't win unless you lose. Like, I live by the rising tide rises all boats. So I want everyone to be better because it makes me better, because every one of us are going to improve from that. But a lot of people live by that zero-sum game. They live by that. I can't be successful unless I'm destroying you. And I just don't live by that. But some people do. And I think he's that type of person that lives by that. I can't be successful unless I destroy you. That's the only thing I can do.
I just want to briefly touch on this. How do you handle speaking to large audiences and so on? A couple of things that you can do to prepare for it if you get invited or whatever to speak before large audiences and you're afraid. Set up your phone and videotape yourself speaking. Watch yourself speaking, understand what you look like, and practice. Practice, practice, practice. It just, believe me, I am not a naturally extroverted person. It does get easier. All right. When you're a guest speaker, how much input do you have on the topics you'll discuss? Do you get to choose your own panels, or are they assigned?
Yes. So it just depends. Some conventions, they just randomly put me to different things. Some conventions are sadistic, and I'll say stuff like, I'll do anything but this. And that's the thing they give me. Most of the time, because I don't do a lot of panels, and I just stay away from things. Panels, one of the reasons why I never did a podcast with anyone is because a lot of people give advice that I don't agree with. And if I don't agree with it, I'm not the type of person that can just sit there.
Mm.
So like when me and you met and we were different on things, but we were well aligned on enough that it's perfectly, because the things that we're different on are subjective. We're not different on anything that's factual. And so like me and you have a great time. We can discuss topics and we can talk about things because generally, as far as the like, you should not use weak verbs. As
Yeah.
opposed to like if you were that kid that I talked about, it's like, no, you should use weak verb only and no punctuation and capitalize nothing and literally get like if that was your stance, me and you would not be able to
Yeah.
discuss that topic together because I would rage and fume and be like, you know, like, yeah. So, so I don't like panels because I end up with people like that. And then I look like the jerk because then I get to be the bad guy by completely raging against them because I think what the advice they're giving is going to hurt people. And I can't stand by with that. So I do mostly solo panels. Actually, if you want to see my worst panel, it's still on the internet somewhere. I was at the Life, the Universe, and Everything, which is a big fantasy panel. And I was put on a panel. Actually, I shouldn't even say this. This is very bad. I was put on a panel that I didn't want to be on, discussing a topic I didn't want to talk about. So I literally bowed out of it as far as like I just said I don't know anything about it and I sat there and shut up. But actually I had a lot to say about it. I just didn't say anything. So I don't want to say anything about it. I shouldn't have gone down that path. It's something in private I don't mind discussing, but that's a touchy topic. But anyway, um, so a lot of times I have, I have what, 20, 25 different classes that I give. They're all hour long with PowerPoint, they're all organized and all that. So a lot of times what I do is I give them that list and then they choose which ones. And I don't care. I'll do any of them at any time. So, and there's some that I like. I feel like the world building class has done too much. Every convention has 2 or 3 people talking about world building.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I have a world building class. But like that's one of my when a convention, one of the last little writers groups that I spoke to, that's what they picked. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Because I don't go into the detail that you go into, my world building class. I got 45 minutes. So
People talk about world building in the dumbest ways.
yeah.
Like with the best will in the world. Yeah.
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 But it's also
They talk about
specialty.
world building in these large generic terms that are, I don't understand what possible value people get out of these high level, like, who cares?
Well, but that's one of the reasons why I am invited everywhere. It's one of the reasons why I am the only author that's been invited to speak at San Diego Comic-Con for 17 years in a row. It's because when I was in the audience and I was the one going to panels and writers conferences and paying to be in the audience, I would say, I got nothing out of this. Like, why am I here? Why am I listening to this idiot talk about this topic? I'm not getting anything. So I always said, man, if I ever get up there, I'm going to do it different. And so that's the reason why, like, the only complaint I get about my classes is that there's too much in them. I'm a fire hose of information, but I don't mind that as a complaint.
Yeah.
So you're complaining that I gave you too much value for your money. Like that's what you're complaining about.
Yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, I had to watch the recording like 4 times to get everything. I'm like, oh, okay. like
What exactly is your problem?
right. So
No.
but that's why I do it that way, is because again, when I was in the audience, I always felt like I never got anything.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to do that, I want to make sure that I really, 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 but that's why people talk about my classes in such high regard, is because there is so much quality information into it. That's probably why I don't like my world building, because as you know, there's a lot. Like you have an entire
Yeah.
channel and you haven't run out of topics and you want me to do it in 45 minutes?
Yeah. So when on the very odd occasion when I do like a high level thing, I don't talk about specific world building topics. I talk about a structured approach to get to your theme and start writing as fast as possible.
Right.
Because you cannot in a single lecture cover
Right.
the breadth
Right.
of building a fully secondary world. It is not possible.
That's why it's my least favorite class that I give, because
Yeah.
because again, and a lot of it has to do with me. My other classes have so much information, and you can literally take one of my classes, walk out, and be a better writer right then. Like, I give
Yeah.
you stuff you can use right then. And the world building, because there's so much and because it's a little bit more esoteric, I don't know, it doesn't satisfy me as much as my other classes. But
Yeah.
they it's all of those. Sometimes they give me it, sometimes they pick, sometimes I say, you know what, I'd really like to give, I'd like to give this class.
Yeah. What are the logistics like for attending these events? Do you coordinate with your publisher or handle the travel and accommodation yourself? So this depends on whether you're self-publishing or whether you are a traditionally published. If you are self-publishing, it's all on you. Like,
It also depends on the convention.
yeah.
So smaller conventions, a lot of time you're on your own. So they're like, here's the where the city is at. This is the convention, and then you just get your own whatever. Some of them are paying for stuff. When I'm an author guest of honor, they're paying for the hotel, they're paying for the flight, they're paying for everything. So, they handle the accommodations. Some of them, like the bigger ones, like your Gen Cons and Comic Cons, they have portals. So, as an exhibitor at both of those, we have a block of rooms that are available to us as exhibitors. So we log into their portal, we use their software to book the hotel and pay for everything through that. And there's that. So it's across the board on the different levels that you have to decide on what you're
Now,
doing.
if you're a
But
traditional publisher,
well,
if you,
that's what I was going to
yeah,
push back on.
yeah,
If you're traditionally published, you're also on your own. They don't do shit for you. Nothing. Like,
it
at all.
it depends on how famous you are.
Well, of course. If you're a Stephen King, then the world is delivered to you in rose-covered baskets.
Well, I mean, like Jacqueline Carey, like her publisher flew with the release of her latest book with Concealed Servant. They flew her to all the conventions, and she did like a
Certain,
massive tour. Yeah,
certain.
yeah.
But if you're not
But if you're not a
a
New York best-selling
deity,
author, right? So that's kind of the standard. You're a New York best-selling author, your publisher will do it. You're not, you're on your own.
actually, that's not true, because most New York selling authors don't get anything, because they'd
Yeah,
still, even to be a New York selling author, you don't make that much money.
yeah.
I want to say the average New York, if you just take the average, and this is my numbers, I think, are from 2017. But in 2017, the average income, and we're talking average, that includes your Stephen King's as well. But if you take the entire New York Times bestseller list, the average salary is, I want to say it was 86,000.
Yeah,
So you can make more money managing a McDonald's than you
yeah,
can being a New York Times bestselling author. And those people get nothing.
yeah,
They just get nothing. It's
yeah.
the Stephen Kings, the John Grishams, they get everything.
Yeah.
But you
But
got to be
you've got to be
selling.
a really big name for your publisher and a proven track record for your
Yeah, you got to be
publisher
in that
to fly you.
seven-figure copy selling
Yeah,
before they bend over backwards for you. If you're a
yeah.
B-level author, I mean, my last thing, I was in the couple 100,000 selling range. Even at that level, your publisher just doesn't do much for you. They just don't, because that's not the level that they're going to cater to. At that level, you're paying the bills. You're paying the bills for the publisher for what you're doing. The way it works is you have about 5% of the authors in a publishing house that are the top echelon. You have about 20% of what's called B-level authors, which is what I was, or am, or whatever you want to say. And then you have about 75% of the authors that lose money.
Yeah.
So the 75% of the authors that lose money, they're losing money. So obviously they don't get anything. Us 20%, we're breaking even. We're paying for, we're definitely putting money into the kitty, but we're not making them profit. Those 5% are covering the loss of the 75% plus making the profit for the company. And when you're making profit for the company, they will cater to you. But even that 20%, those B-level authors get almost nothing, because you're just, you're at a level where, yeah, you're a good product. You sell consistently. We're not losing money on you. You may even put $1 or $2 in the kitty, but that's all you are. You're just a product that's basically selling well, but you're
Doing
not
its
making us,
job.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
not making us profit. You're
Yeah.
not making us money. And so it's weird. So don't think
The,
that.
The Peanut Gallery says it's very depressing that New York Times best-selling authors make less than Mickey D managers. And I'm like, well, if you're going into writing to get rich, I have some good news and some bad news. You can do it, but best you learn how to be a formulaic writer and churn out 6 romances a year.
10.
10 romances a year. Because, like, there is a big audience for that. And if you get the formula right and you write in an immersive way, you can make money there.
Your big name
Anything
author.
else is hit and miss at.
Yeah. My 2 favorite sayings that I say are, writing is not a get rich quick scheme. It's a work your butt off 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for decades. And if you're very, very, very lucky, you might make a living scheme.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite is, steal a man's wallet and he'll be broke for a week. Teach a man to write and he'll be broke for the rest of his life.
How do you balance promoting your work with connecting authentically with fans during these events?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I'm always promoting, but I'm always promoting in a way that is a very, I'm a very authentic person. I'm a very approachable person, I feel like. So I'm never just like, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. I'm just like, hey, you're a geek like me. What are you into? What do you like? Or, they're like, oh, I love your book of this thing. Okay, what did you like about it? Oh, yeah, that was really cool, wasn't it? How did this make you feel or whatever? So I just try to, I am just a nerd. So I just try to be a nerd authentically with my fans and just nerd out with them. And if we're nerding out on something I wrote, great. If we're nerding out on, some other IP, great. I don't really care. I just want to hang out with them and try to connect with them on a personal basis. So I don't know if I try to balance it as opposed to I just do it.
I tend to talk much less, so it's a little harder for me.
I talk a lot.
What's the most challenging aspect of being a guest speaker at conventions and festivals that people might not realize?
How long the days are.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. A fan will come up to me and spend 5 minutes with me, 8 minutes with me, and then they're gone doing whatever. Or they'll come to my lecture for an hour and then they're gone for whatever. I'm dealing with 1,500 of those, starting from first thing in the morning until the end of the day. And then if I am hunting work, I have the after hours stuff that I do. I'm not hunting work anymore. So when the convention is done, I'm done. But still, you're talking about, 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. Having to always be on, having to always be excited, always be happy, always be, hey, how you doing? For the 872nd time. So
So let's talk about that. How do you manage your energy and maintain your enthusiasm over the course of a multi-day event?
it's genuine for me. I'm genuinely excited to know that I'm impacting people, that what I do matters to them. It is really invigorating to me to have somebody love what I do. I've done a million jobs in my life, but no time ever did when I was working at McDonald's, no time ever did somebody walk back and go, did you make that Big Mac? Man, that changed my life. That Big Mac really impacted me. Like, not once. And so it is, well, I walked into Gen Con to set up my booth. So we were talking about the day before the convention, and this author came up to me and handed me this book. And he's like, read the dedication. And so I open it up and it says, acknowledgement. This one is dedicated to Maxwell Alexander Drake. You helped me in a way that can't be measured. This is the biggest honor that I could possibly get. This means more to me than anything out there. And so, yes, he's also a professional author, but he's also a fan. And so when a fan does that for me, when, I've got a tub of mustard over there on my desk because I hate mustard. And I use mustard in my theme class derogatorily about how I
Mm.
don't allow mustard in my house. And yet at Comic-Con, a fan brought me a thing of mustard, which means he went to my class at Comic-Con, the busiest convention in the United States, then left that convention to go to a grocery store to buy a thing of mustard to then bring it to me at my booth as an appreciation for how my story impacted him. Now
Mm.
I had him sign and date it. So I've got it sitting over there. It's the only mustard in this house, but that means the world to me.
Yeah.
It means the world to me that I impacted someone enough that they were willing to, and I get it, he was making a joke too, but that means that my story impacted him enough to want to do that for me, want to make that joke, to make that connection with me. And so I still have it. I'll never open it because mustard is the devil. So it will stay over there permanently closed forever. But that's very special to me. And so that really does energize me. That really is my energy level is at 110% the entire convention because I really do love the fan interaction. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It boggles my mind that people get frustrated by their fans. That people are like, you want me to sign that? Fine. Like, because that's happened to me.
Mm.
And I don't get it. I don't understand how you can't appreciate someone who appreciates what you do.
Yeah.
It blows them. I can't ever imagine getting so numb to that it's a burden. So
Yep.
that is really
Um,
my secret for staying energized. It's the fans energize me.
um, How do you approach networking with other professionals at these events? Any tips for making meaningful connections?
All right. So there's a secret part of every convention. It's called BarCon. Now, there is no official BarCon at any convention, but every convention has a BarCon. And basically what it is any convention that's been going on for any amount of time that has any level of professionals, each industry will pick a place, usually a bar, but it doesn't always have to be. Sometimes it could be a hotel lobby, whatever. But that convention or that industry meets there every night of the event. So at Gen Con, there's a hotel lobby where artists and art directors meet. There's a bar where writers and publishers and agents meet every night. Every night, that's where that industry goes and hangs out. It isn't advertised. You are not told about it. You have to kind of meet someone who knows where it's at and then kind of get invited to it because it is not something that anyone publicizes. But every convention has a BarCon for every industry. So, whatever it is. And you do have to kind of get into the inner workings of things to start finding out where these things are being held at so that you can go. And the big reason is because they are not for marketing. And what will get you kicked out of them is like you go to the one at Gen Con where the publishers and agents hang out and you go there and you're like, I'm a writer. Here's my stuff. Please read my stuff. Read my stuff. Like that is not what BarCons are for. One of the very first times that I ever sat with a tour editor, I knew he was there. I knew who he was. I knew I wanted to talk to him. I went to the BarCon. He's sitting at the bar by himself. I walked up. I sat down next to him. I ordered a Coke because I don't drink. And then I was like, how you doing the con? It's like, oh, what was your favorite part of the con? And then we ended up talking for about 4 hours. We moved to a table by ourselves. We talked about video games and we talked about movies and we talked about all sorts of stuff. And we just had a great time. And then at the end of it, he's like, wow, it's getting late. I'm assuming you're a writer. And I'm like, yeah, I write a word or two. And he's like, well, I mean, I've had a great time tonight. Are you pitching anything? And I'm like, yeah, I might have something that I'm shopping. And he's like, well, here's my card. Why don't you send it to me, man? Like, that's what BarCon is for. It's for making those connections, but not pushing yourself on them. You have to have tact. You have to understand it's about getting to know people. Nobody wants to go to these after hours events and have you do what you would do to them if you went into their office during their work day. That's not what BarCons are for. And that's why they don't tell people about them, like, because they don't want people like that hounding them. It's sort of like you hear it all the time, these horror stories of like at a writers conference, an agent will go into the bathroom and somebody will pitch them their book while they're literally using the toilet. And it's like, what are you even thinking?
Yeah.
Like, how insane are you to think that somebody who is doing their private business is now going to actually offer you a contract because of your amazing story idea? Like, no, they're gonna think that you are the ickiest, horrible human being on the planet, and they want nothing to do with you ever again, no matter how brilliant your Harry Potter story is. Like, it doesn't matter at that point. Like, but people do that. People do that all the stinking time. And so that's my advice. Be a human being to these people and understand that a lot of this is just about who you know and if they like you or not. And so be authentic, be yourself, let them be themselves and get to know them. And then people like to do business with people that they like.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is that simple.
And then, well, last one really is, do you have any advice for someone aspiring to be a guest speaker at conventions and festivals, and how do you build up to that?
It's about, so I used to teach, but in a past life, I used to teach sales. And the number one problem that salespeople has is asking for the sale. So it's very simple. You have a customer comes in, it's looking for a widget. They want a widget. They came to your widget store because they want a widget. You show them the widget. You ask them questions like, what type of widget do you need? What are you looking for in a widget? Okay, well, this meets all of your needs. This, you want a widget that does A, B, and C. This one does A, B, and C. It also does D, which is kind of cool. Whatever, it meets your price range, and what price range are you looking for? This is it. But while a lot of people don't have a problem with that, what they have a problem with is the end of it, which is, so can I ring you up? You want to go ahead and get this today? You got to ask for the sale. You have to. So like with Comic-Con, one of the reasons why I started doing the classes is it costs a lot of money. I was with a small press. You might as well say I was a self-published, writer as far as that's concerned. I had to pay for everything. I got to pay for travel. I mean, at the beginning of my career, I was probably spending $40,000 to $50,000 a year on conventions with travel, hotel, food. I was going to 20, 25, 30 a year, and I paid for all of it. And it's expensive. And so somebody told me, hey, if you do classes for some of these things, sometimes they do things for you, like give you a free booth, or sometimes they pay for your hotel, or sometimes they pay for your, travel or whatever. And so I'm like, well, I can do that. And so when I was at Comic-Con that year, I was like, okay, look at this. They're in their program guide. They do classes. Who runs this? Oh, it's this person. Great. Where are they in the convention? Let me take time out and go find them. Hey, my name is Maxwell Alexander Drake. I'm a writer. I give classes on writing. These are some of the classes that I give. I would love to give a class here. Do you think I could do that next year? And she was like, no. No, we're Comic-Con. You're nobody. No. And I was like, sad. And then the next year I was at Comic-Con and I went up and I was like, hey, remember me from last year? I'm a writer. Name's Max Alexander Drake. Just wanted to again say, hi to you, remind you that I give classes, any chance that maybe next year. And she was like, no, you're a nobody. We're Comic-Con. Go away. And I did that the third year and it was still a no. And then before the fourth year, so the third, first, second, third year, she told me no. But before the fourth year, she called me a month before the convention. Hey, we had a cancellation. I can find literally no one to do this. We've got a room that I need to put a body in. Do you want it? Yes. Yes, I do. Like, that's literally how I started speaking at Comic-Con, is I just kept every year politely putting myself in front of her, reminding her who I was. Hey, I'm speaking at these other events. These are the reviews that I'm getting from these other events. I would love to do this for you. And I just kept doing it. And now 17 years in a row, I've spoken at Comic-Con. Now that comes from the fact that I then put in a bunch of effort and they got a bunch of fan mail on me saying that, this is the type of, we want him back. And so because I did my job and the fans got behind me, matter of fact, the third year that I was there, they told me that's it. I can't, because they're not supposed to do someone year after year after year because they don't want to seem like they're promoting somebody. And so after the third year, they were like, we can't have you back next year. And a month before that convention, because I still had a booth there, but a month before that convention, they called me up and they were like, hey, so our schedule came out and we've gotten so many emails complaining that you're not on our schedule. We're going to fit you in. And so when that happened that year, they were like, so, we're just going to have you back every year. Like, we're not supposed to do that, but there's already one guy that we're doing that. And that's Jim Lee, the famous Marvel artist. He speaks with us every year because he's Jim Lee. And even though you're a nobody, for some reason, people like you. So we're just going to have you as well every year. And so, but that's because I earned it at that point. So put myself in front of them, made sure they knew who I was, made sure that I stayed with it and kept asking for the sale, asking for the sale, asking for the sale. And then when the opportunity came, I did everything in my power to make sure that it was the best that I could possibly do, and earned now a permanent place speaking at the largest fan convention in the United States for somebody who's a nobody. So that's my advice. It's work, it's effort, it's don't leave any stone unturned. It's luck doesn't happen, luck is made. People are like, oh, you're so lucky that you get to speak. No, yeah, you're right. I am lucky. 100%, not going to deny that. But I made that luck. I chased that luck. I worked hard for that luck. So now it could have easily not happened too. I mean, what were the chances of somebody canceling 3 weeks before the event and then them not finding anyone? Because I guarantee you, I was low on their list. Yeah. It's not like I was the next person for her to call. She probably called a bunch of people before she worked her way down to my little lowly butt.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, like, the more effort you put in, the luckier you get, because you are in the right places with the right skill set.
Yeah.
So you have a larger percentage of getting lucky than somebody who's not. Yeah.
It wasn't luck that I was on her list. It was luck that she worked her way down to me.
Yes. It was luck that everybody else said no, but you were on her list because you got yourself on her list.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and that's been the story of my career. And technically that's the story of my life. I love to talk about me and my wife's meet cute, how we met. But really the reality of it was, when I was ready to start dating again, she had called me up and said, hey, because her and me, neither one of us would eat dinner alone. And so she had called me up saying, because she knew I wouldn't eat alone. And she was like, what are you doing for dinner? And I was like, I'm just here by myself. If you want to come over, we can order pizza, whatever. Yeah, I was the last person she called. She called every single one of her friends and nobody was available to eat, because she had no interest in, she didn't, because I was kind of a playboy at the time. So she was like, I have no interest in you. You're not the type of person I want. Weirdly, I had stopped being that. I was done with that. I was tired of that life. And so it just all happened kind of serendipitously. But literally, she probably called 15 other people. And if any of them had said, yeah, I'll go with you to eat, I might even be married to her. Like, so yeah, it's just, but it's still being there. It's still just putting yourself on those lists and being available and then saying yes. That's the other thing. I've told this story before. I think one of the biggest things that gets people that gets in people's way in this career is fear of failure. I've never failed in my life. It's not that I've never not succeeded at something, but everything that I've not succeeded at, I've learned a lesson. You can't fail if you learn. If I actually gained knowledge because I slammed my face into the floor, then that's not a failure. I learned something. And so I'm not afraid of failure because I don't fail. I may not achieve what I was hoping to achieve, but I always learn something. I always grow. I always figure out something new to make it better for me in the future. And so many people are afraid to fail. And that they just don't try. They just don't put themselves on the list because, like, but what if I fail? Or what if you don't achieve it, but you learn something? Because that's not failing. So that's the difference. The difference in me is that I'm just not afraid of planting my face on the floor, because I'm going to learn so much by that planting of that face. It's going to hurt. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. I just planted my face on the floor. Like, it hurts, but I learned a lot from that face plant, and I won't make those mistakes again. And so I can't consider that a failure. I just can't. And that's why I feel like I've never failed in my entire life, because everything teaches me something. And so that's the thing that I think is my biggest advantage over most people. Most people are just too afraid to try. They're just too afraid to ask. They're too afraid to step off the cliff. They don't want to publish their book because what if someone doesn't like it? Okay, what if someone doesn't like it? Who cares? Like, what if no one likes it? Okay, are you going to learn? If no one likes your book and you get the only stars you get is a 1 star, and every single one of them says, I'm only giving this book a 1 star because I need to tell you how terrible it is. And if I could give it a 0 star and still tell you how terrible it is, I would have given it a 0 star. Now, that is a soul crushing start to a critique. Yeah. But what are you going to learn in that critique? What is this person going to say that's going to open your eyes to the mistakes that you made? Now, again, it's how you handle it. If you go, yes, I suck, I'll never do this again, and that's it, then yeah, you failed. But if you go, okay, well, let me see what I did that made this person so angry that they put this level of review on it. And it's like, they used weak verbs constantly, since that was our last
podcast.
It's like, oh, I don't even know what a weak verb is. Maybe I should go find, I don't know, a podcast by some weird people that are doing Releasing Your Inner Dragon that talk about how not to use weak verbs and maybe learn something from it. Like, then you didn't fail. Yes, you got a horrible reviews on your book. Yes, your book wasn't successful. But if you learn something, I just don't see how you can consider that a failure. So that's really it. That's my advice to people in all of this career. It's what I try to give the advice in the writer's room. It's, because I'm not a cheerleader, because I never say it's easy. I never say you can do it. All you got to do is just do it, that everything's going to work out for you because, rainbows and unicorn farts. I don't say it that it's effort, it's time, it's pain, it's working through it. That's what it is. But if you're afraid to try, then what's the statement? It's always a no if you don't try. The answer is always a no. If you never ask, that's what it is. It's always a no if you never ask.
Yeah.
It may be a no if you ask, but it's always a no if you don't ask.
And I think that is a good note on which to end this episode.
No!
We will see you soon for another one.
If you are ready to take your writing to the next level and work with a group of highly motivated, dedicated writers who are all working to not only improve their writing, but improve your writing, plus you get to work with me on a weekly basis, then I'll encourage you to check out writersroom.us. This is a website that I have created that I really wish I had 30 years ago. It's everything a writer needs to become a better writer. Not only do we do weekly critique sessions, both from other members as well as me, we have daily writing sessions, I do monthly classes, Q&As, we have activities, I do all sorts of learning exercises, such as I do a quarterly writing prompt contest, and just tons and tons and tons of things. So if you're ready to get serious about your writing and you want to actually finish that novel and have a chance of it being published, then I encourage you to head on over to the Writer's Room and join me there. And as a special promotion for listeners of Releasing Your Inner Dragon, I'll go one step more. If you would like to get 50% off for 3 months, reach out to me. There's a million ways you can do that. You can do it through starvingwriterstudio.com, drakeu.com, any of my social medias such as LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever. Reach out to me, say that you would like to check out the Writer's Room for 50% off, and I will send you a link that will allow you to do just that. So hopefully you're ready to start getting serious about writing, and I'll see you in the Writer's Room.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Marie Mullaney, your co-host on this literary adventure. Our goal is to provide you with valuable insights and discussions on writing. If you believe in our mission, please like and subscribe our podcast. Sharing our episodes with your community not only helps us grow, but also contributes to a richer, more diverse conversation about storytelling. We appreciate your support. For a deeper understanding of the topics we've discussed, head over to Just in Time Worlds on YouTube. It is a treasure trove where fantasy meets history and science. Every Tuesday, you'll find new videos that delve into the intricacies of world building, drawing from our rich real-world history. Whether you're a writer, a role player, or just a fantasy enthusiast, Just in Time Worlds offers unique insights that will enrich your perspective. Check it out and join the journey of crafting incredible worlds.